Hola. That's actually the only Portuguese word I know, so I have to switch to English. And before starting, I want to point out that I really feel honored to be invited to this conference, and how important I think that you are all gathered here, because I feel this is a point in history where grassroots movements join big strategic and industrial forces and can create something new. And I also feel honored to be part of this lineup. And before starting my own presentation, I want to quote 3 slides to underline this, because I wanted to start with a strategic lever number 9, because that is what the Tübingen packaging tax is all about. So we created new mechanisms and tax incentives. And also later on we had one quote. Was that yours? Yeah. So that is in Portuguese, but I can't just read through. And in the third presentation, I found it very interesting that you quoted the shift from just recycling, we had that for 30 years in Germany now, to preventing waste at all and creating a reuse economy instead. Because that is exactly what happened in Germany with our tax, and it happened at the Supreme Court, because that was exactly what we had to try, whether there is a new legal framework that allows cities to create incentives, tax incentives for reusing and stopping the waste of just using a product once. So I don't know what Presidente de Cámara is.
Mayor.
Mayor? Okay. I have to state that this is not the complete title. It needs to be Lord Mayor. Ooh. Because it's a big city in German standards, and therefore it's the Lord Mayor, it's not only the mayor. And the mayor in Germany is elected directly. This is important to know, because I had to face 3 elections in my town, and the last election happened after the introduction of the tax. So important message for decision makers: you can be re-elected if you impose taxes on one-way products. Now, what is the Tübingen packaging tax? You see, this was the situation very much all around town before, and it's a little bit overstating the effect, but this is what we have now. So we have seen a decrease in waste all around downtown, and this is important because many people don't like littering. So you can join forces of environmentalists with those conservative people like me with gray hair and gray suits and all that stuff that don't like littering, and join forces and you get a majority. And whenever you enter downtown, you see this nice guy, and he is really proposing not to throw away stuff, and he explains that we have the packaging tax in Tübingen. So the initial situation, this is easy to explain. We have seen this rapid increase of takeaway products all around Europe. It happened in Tübingen as well. When I was a student, very long time ago, I did not know the term of to go. I thought that's an African country, Togo. But today it's everywhere. And of course, this consequently produced a lot of litter and a lot of consumption of resources and energy. The German Umwelthilfe, it's an environmental organization, estimates that around 320,000 one-way cups are used every hour in Germany. Every hour. So it's an immense pile of waste. The objectives of the tax are as follows. We wanted, and I quoted, we wanted to create economic incentives to make reusable systems attractive. We wanted to reduce litter and keep the city cleaner. We wanted to reduce unnecessary resource and energy consumption. And we wanted to apply the polluter pays principle, because we already had incentives, but the wrong incentives. To throw away the stuff after using it for 50 seconds to drink a cup of coffee was for free. And the city paid for the disposal. So that was the wrong incentive. And it's not surprising that most people accepted that incentive. They bought the one-way cup, they throw it away, and if we were lucky, they threw it away into a waste paper basket. But not all of them did. So we wanted to create better economic incentives than those we already had. Now the legal framework was complicated because in 1994 already a German city called Kassel had invented exactly that type of tax. But then in 1998 the German Supreme Court ruled that this was unconstitutional. So more than 60 cities that already had introduced the tax had to abolish it. And then 20 years happened nothing until we came up with the idea to try it again because, and that's again quote, that shift in the European legislation and the German legislation and obviously, as I understand, in the Portuguese legislation away from recycling and supporting incentives that create a reuse economy. And we thought that the legal framework had already changed enough that the new waste hierarchy, that's a term that exists in Germany as well, like in SDG 12, that the new waste hierarchy allows us to introduce the tax again. And we tried that. So Council in 2020 decided that we want to introduce the tax. And then, of course, it happened what had to happen. McDonald's sued us. And they only have one shop in Tübingen, so it was not about Tübingen, it was about stopping that idea to spread. And that's why I'm so happy that I'm here, that I can spread the idea against McDonald's again and again. And we had to face 3 courts. The first court was the state Supreme Court. The state Supreme Court ruled the tax is unconstitutional for 3 reasons. And we were quite unhappy with that, but I could convince Council to go to the national court. 5 minutes? I'm fine. To go to the national court, and the national court ruled the state court was completely wrong in those 3 reasons. So don't be afraid of lawyers. You might find better ones. And finally, in the federal constitutional court, that's the state supreme, the national Supreme Court in Germany, that's exactly the one that ruled the tax was unconstitutional in 1998, ruled it is constitutional now. So we have a new framework. Politicians have designed better legal systems, and now it is possible what used to be impossible. Isn't that good news? So in Germany, it is now possible to do it. Who is affected? It's easy to understand. It's the restaurants, the bars, the cafes, the supermarkets that sell the stuff. And it is intentionally that they pass on the tax to the consumers, because that creates the incentives for the consumer not to use the one-way packaging. Otherwise, you don't have an effect. But the taxpayer is, of course, the shop. We can't charge 10,000 consumers per week, so we charge the shops. But they move on the tax to the consumers. What is very important, if you think about that you talk to those people. So we had face-to-face conversations with every single shop in town, if they wanted. We had FAQs, we had a lot of information, and also we had financial support for reusable systems from the beginning. So those shops that were forced to buy, for example, a washing machine, new dishes, they could hand on the cost to the city, and the city covered that. So the starting costs were covered by the city. And these are the results. We created a yearly revenue of 800,000 euros in Tübingen with 90,000 inhabitants, so you can estimate what your city could earn. We have around 200 businesses that pay the tax, and the administrative cost for introducing it was about 100,000 euros. We expect it to be 40,000 euros now, so 800,000 euros of income, 40,000 euros of cost. It's very effective for the city budget as well, and we see less litter and greater use of reusable packaging. The companies tell us that in Tübingen they have a 10-fold higher use of reusable cups and plates and bowls than in average in Germany. So it's a tenfold increase. That's a significant effect. And we exactly use the recaps that you've seen in a earlier slide that I haven't found in the beginning. The broader context is, of course, and you have heard about that, so I can, I think I can skip that and end with the German effect so far. So we have a lot of media coverage, and a lot of cities are considering to introduce the city, and these 5 cities have already implemented. So if you look at the cities, they are now larger than Tübingen is. Freiburg so far is the biggest, but that means that almost 500,000 people, inhabitants in Germany, already are in an environment where there is the right incentive. The incentive is no longer throwing away is good and you won't have to pay for it. The incentive is, if you throw it away, you have to pay for it, and there is a better option. Get a reuse cup, pay a deposit, and get the money back. And that is what people respond to, and I don't think Portuguese people would respond in another way than German people. The only question you have, of course, that needs clarification is a city in your legal framework, because we have national legal frameworks here, is a city entitled to introduce such a tax? The estimate is that 1/3 of European countries permits their communities to introduce that type of tax. 1/3 it's unsure, and 1/3 it's certainly not possible. Which third you are in your country, you need to find out. Thanks very much for listening.